Recently on this channel, I did an unboxing video of this epic A Nightmare on Elm Street 7-film 4K UHD Steelbook collection. You can check out that video here on my channel. And this set includes all 7 of the original Freddy Krueger films, and it doesn't have Freddy vs. Jason, and it also does not have the 2010 remake. Now that 2010 remake had Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy Krueger instead of Robert Englund, and most people don't like that film very much, but it's not even in this set, so we're not talking about it today other than what I just did. But today we're going to discuss just one of these films, and that is probably one of my favorites. It kind of competes with the first or second slot if I was to rank these films, and that film is none other than A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. And in this video, we're going to talk about the movie, we're going to talk about this 4K transfer, and we're eventually going to rate the movie and the release on a scale from 1 to 5. Let's get into it. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. Now, of all the Nightmare on Elm Street films, this is probably the one that I've watched the most. And it's the one that I think this one is fun. It's one of the ones that to me is more fun than the others, and it also does maintain a little bit of the scary tension from the first one. The first one's a classic, and it has a little bit of comedy in it, but this one goes. And this one kind of pushes the envelope of the comedy a little bit. That would later on in some of the next installments they would even go further with the comedic beats of Freddy Krueger. But this is kind of the one that started the wisecracking one-liners. I remember seeing that trailer for it on television, and it was kind of like Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, and it showed like one of the Dream Warriors is one who's in a wheelchair, and at one point he turns into like a wizard during the dream, and he fights back, and that's what the first film in Nightmare on Elm Street series. You had all these teenagers who are being stalked by Freddy. This one actually gets them together, and they come up with a plan to go into the dream together and fight as a team against Freddy Krueger. And it's not often successful for the Dream Warriors, but it's a really great idea. And I do like a lot of the characters, even though most of them, for the most part, are killed off during the course of this film. And if little spoilers, I'm sure who's ever watching this has probably seen all of them. The fourth film, they go ahead and kill off the rest of them because you can't have. I didn't necessarily agree with that decision, but I see why they would do it, because you don't want someone to be able to fight Freddy Krueger that good, and it kind of makes him less scary if they're able to fight him. But he does. Freddy's always coming up with new ways to be able to fight somebody. You know, if somebody gets the upper hand on him, he kind of takes that personal, and he's going to come back and figure out a way to kill you later. That's kind of what he does. Now, this one, for the most part, takes place in a psychiatric hospital where these teens who end up being like the kids from the original parents who killed Freddy Krueger. They've been having dreams, and their parents think they're trying to commit suicide, so they put them in this hospital, including who you think is at first the main character, but she is one of the main characters. Patricia Arquette plays a character named Kristen, who it starts off with her, and you see her dream, and it's pretty cool dream. I do like the dream sequences in most of these films, but this one does a nice job at the beginning where you see Kristen go into this dream world, which is Freddy Krueger's house, and you see the kids all hanging in the basement, and it really goes into a little bit more of the kids, and she tries to save one of the kids and tries to run from Freddy, which doesn't go too good, but it's a cool dream sequence, and then it ends with him slashing her wrist, and then it comes back into real life, and she has a razor blade in her hand, and one of her wrists is slashed. A pretty cool blood effect coming out of her wrist, fairly convincing. And then she ends up in that hospital who's the main doctor is played by Craig Wasson, who plays Dr. Neil Gordon, who's a therapist there. And I recognized him when I watched the film Body Double. I was like, I don't know where I recognized him from, but then once I saw this again, I was like, oh, I recognized him from that. But he plays the main character in Body Double. This is a steelbook of Body Double, which is fairly impressive. It also has Melanie Griffith in it. But it also, one of the orderlies in this movie is played by Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne is billed as Larry Fishburne in the opening credits. And he doesn't have a huge part, but he's in a pretty good bit for the first maybe 30 or 40 minutes, and then he kind of disappears for a while, and you see him one other time. And he gets pretty high billing in the opening credits, but not in the end credits. He's pretty far down on the billing. I think in the opening credits he's like third billed as Larry Fishburne, but he does a good job when he's on screen. But he's not really one of the major characters. He's not a dream warrior. He's just an orderly that works at the hospital. Kind of gets a glorified part in it, but it's good to see him in it. He does a good job. So back to the Dream Warrior. So this doctor, Craig Wasson, he's been dealing with these kids who are having these issues, and suddenly like a new specialist, I guess, therapist shows up, who is none other than played by Heather Langenkamp, who played Nancy in the original. She's back, and she's trying to help these kids who are all having the same problem with Freddy Krueger showing up in their dreams and killing people. So she gets involved, and it's some other weird aspects to it. Like the main character, well, I should just, to me, it's like three protagonists in this film. You got the Dr. Neil Gordon, you got Nancy, and you have Kristen, and then you have all the Dream Warrior, all the other kids there who end up making a team, or as it goes on. But I do like the dynamics between it. It is maybe too many protagonists. It doesn't really follow one of them, but it does follow, for different parts of the film, it does follow Dr. Neil Gordon as he does some investigating, and he is the one who has to be convinced that all this is happening. And he actually runs into a nun who's in the cemetery and talks to him that no one else sees, and she seems to be some kind of apparition. And she ends up being like giving him a lot of information about how to fight Freddy Krueger later on in the film. But I'm not going to go deep into all of that. But I will say I do like this cast, and there's some really cool practical special effects in this film. There's a Freddy snake that comes out of the floor at one point during one of the dreams and tries to eat Patricia Arquette's character, and that thing, it looks pretty cool. And you also have one guy who's got puppets, and Freddy Krueger turns him into a puppet. He takes his veins out of his hands and out of his legs, and he guides him up on top of this building and then makes him fall. And yeah, cuts the strings, which are his veins, and he falls to his death. And that's one of the scenes from the trailer. It's kind of it looks a lot better in 4K. There's you got this wide shot, and Freddy Krueger's kind of superimposed in the back of it as he cuts the strings, and it looks a little better here in 4K. I've always thought that shot was kind of wonky a little bit, but I think there's actually several scenes in this film that the special effects are very ambitious in this film, and for the most part they succeed. But there's some that were kind of green screen that don't. I've seen other versions of it where they looked a little more green screeny. I will say all of that, it doesn't look perfect, but it looks a lot better in this 4K transfer. Now I do want to talk about a few more of the really awesome kills and practical special effects in this film. And the one that's probably, and it's even on the back of the steelbook, but there's the one girl who wants to be an actress, and she's watching TV, and then TV starts messing up, and she falls asleep and doesn't realize she's asleep, which tends to happen in these films. But she goes up to the TV, and the TV grows arms, and then grabs her, pulls her up, and Freddy Krueger's head comes out of the top of the TV, and then she's like, no, and all that, trying to get away, and he's like, "Welcome to prime time, bitch," and takes her and smashes her face into the TV, which kills her. But that's that "Welcome to prime time, bitch," that was one of his first one-liners, I think, from this thing that really like catapulted those one-liners when he kills somebody. And apparently Robert Englund, he says that most of them he didn't ad-lib. That's the one that he changed while they were shooting that. He's I guess that's the one he's most quoted for. But also there's near the end of it, when John Saxon's character is brought back into it, and there's a really awesome set near the end in this like car graveyard where there's all these like junked cars, and Freddy Krueger's original body is in one of those, and they have to get it and try to bury it. And while that's happening, suddenly that body comes back to life, and it's some kind of stop motion animation like situation with the skeleton that's always, I've always thought it was a little off. Now the skeleton looks cool, the stop motion. I like stop motion animation anyway, but as far as the way that the video looks, it looks like the skeleton looks really crisp and focused, and then the John Saxon and John Wesson's coverage is slightly soft or almost like intentionally blurry out of focus, which it looks a little off, and it looks better here in this 4K than it normally does. I have this Blu-ray collection here, Nightmare on Elm Street, the Blu-ray collection. I did compare it against this, and all of it looks better generally than the Blu-ray. Now, the Blu-ray doesn't look horrible, but this is definitely an upgrade on this new restoration. Now, the movie was directed by Chuck Russell. Now, Chuck Russell, and it was written by him and Frank Darabont. There was an earlier draft that was written by Wes Craven and another guy, but at first, like they thought Wes Craven would be directing this, but then they ended up going with Chuck Russell. I'm not sure exactly what changed with that, and I don't know if it would have been better with Wes directing it or not. I think he had a different idea about where to go with it, and what Chuck Russell did here is just made it a lot of fun. But he also he seems like he does have a really like the original aspect, and he just brought it to a different, I think, the next step of where it needed to go. The second one, the Nightmare on Elm Street, I almost said Friday the 13th, but Nightmare on Elm Street 2 kind of takes it where a kid is turning into Freddy Krueger. So they did a really original idea with that second one, but this one is a progression of the first one, which makes more sense. Now, Chuck Russell, he also directed the remake of The Blob. This movie is a lot of fun, and I really like it. I like Chuck Russell's direction, and he also did the Jim Carrey movie, The Mask, which is also a lot of fun. And they have a new Arrow 4K UHD release coming out pretty soon that I have ordered. I can't wait to get that. And well, it's been a long time since I've seen the original The Mask movie, and I really liked it when it first came out. And it was like introducing Cameron Diaz as her first film, but that movie was, from what I remember, it was a lot of fun. As far as the physical release of this, it is pretty simple. You got a steelbook. You have the original cover art, which I really dig that. And I used to have a VHS of this it wasn't too long ago. I found it, and this was like, I thought VHSs were completely worthless, and I sold it, like a lot of VHSs, and I just sold them, and then I realized that they were actually worth something. I kind of would have been nice to have that film, because it was probably my favorite of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. I had it on VHS, and I watched that VHS a bunch of times. On the back, you got, which I showed you a few minutes ago, you got the Jennifer character getting smashed into the TV. On the inside, we have just one disc, and unfortunately, there's not a Blu-ray here. It's just a 4K UHD. A lot of times, these sets will have a 4K and a Blu-ray, and that's kind of, I mean, the set's awesome. You have all the movies, but they do these. They do individual releases of these a lot of times with a lot more goodies and a lot more information. Like, it'd be nice to have a booklet with this. There's no booklet, but for what this is a pretty friggin' amazing set. And as far as the transfer here, and I did compare it to the Blu-ray, I would have compared it to the VHS. No, I probably wouldn't have. The VHS is going to look significantly worse, but it looks better than the Blu-ray, and it has HDR grading in it, which makes the skin tones look more natural. And you do see that. You do see an uptick in the fine detail and the sharpness, a little bit more sharp in general. And it with this HDR grading, it does make the darker areas look more dark. And this was shot on film, and you do see the film grain in there. For the most part, it's nicely resolved, and you rarely notice it. You have to look for it, but it's there. And it looks very filmic. Now, I'm fairly happy with this transfer. I would like to know more information about how they obtained the transfer and what work they did to get there, but none of it's in here. There's no verbiage in here that tells you anything like that. So I can just make some assumptions looking at it, because it does look to be fairly restored. It's definitely had an HDR grading, and which makes the black levels look very deep and very awesome. But in general, I think the clarity's better. Everything. The Blu-ray doesn't look bad, but you do see a lot more detail in comparison. For the transfer itself, that alone, this is awesome. There are two special features on here. One is a block of interviews with different cast members and different production people, including Wes Craven and Chuck Russell, the director. But it also has several of the cast members as well, and it's fairly informative seeing that. And that is an archive one. It is shot SD, so you got the black bars on the side. And other than that, there is a music video on here. So they shot a music video with who, I don't remember the band's name, but they did this song about the Dream Warriors, and it incorporates footage of the movie in SD quality over this video. And just seeing that, That's what it looked like on VHS, maybe even DVD, which I have the DVD. I didn't look at it, but it's nice to see that comparison, because when you see that, it really makes you appreciate how much better this new transfer looks. So let's go ahead and rate the film. I'm going to rate the film, and I'm going to rate the release. I'm going to rate this film a 4-star rating. I really like this one. Like I said, it's one of my favorite, if not favorite, of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Just this and the first one, to me, are the two best ones. Now, there are some flaws. I'm not going to go deep into the flaws of it, but there are some that can be nitpicked within this thing. But we're not doing that right now. And as far as the release itself, I'm going to give this release also a 4-star rating. I do like the Steelbook. But I kind of prefer like a bigger box thing with a booklet than a Steelbook. But I do like what they've done here. I would like to see some more artwork for the film. I really enjoy A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. Let me know what your thoughts are on this film. And if you haven't done so already, if you would like this video, you see this box right here, you click on that. It's going to bring you to where I unboxed this thing recently, and you can see the covers of all the other ones. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. Thanks for watching.